Welcome to Commander Tune-Ups with the Nitpicking Nerds.
In this video, we're tuning up our patron Scott's Prava and Kamahl tokens deck.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. If you want to support the Nitpicking Nerds, you can go to the TCG Player affiliate link in the description. Just buy your cards through there, starting with the link, and then when you check out and everything's complete, we get a little kickback courtesy of TCG Player because you're so awesome.
Yes, and if you want to help us celebrate 50K subscribers on the horizon, go ahead and send us whatever to our PO box, which is in the description below. Make sure it's PG, appropriate for the channel, and we'll open it, and you can see it on a video.
Joe Cherries, what is a Commander Tune-Up?
Commander Tune-Ups, we take a deck submitted by a patron, a backer, however you got it to us. We take it, and we upgrade it under your restrictions. This is a Prava and a Kamahl deck, and where the restrictions are, well, we're not putting any reserve list cards on here, so nothing like that. And there's really no budget. Just obviously, we're not going to throw in just Mana Crypt. Obviously, if he wants to throw in Mana Crypt, he knows to throw in Mana Crypt. We're making adjustments to the deck based on theme.
Yeah, the actual cards are going to get adjusted. So let's read the commanders. Prava of the Steel Legion is 2 and a white for a 1/4. As long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get +1/+4, and you can pay 3 and a white to make a 1/1 soldier.
And Kamahl, Heart of Krosa is 6 green legendary creature, human druid 5/5. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. He also has some flavor text down here. It says 1 in the green until end of turn. Target land you control becomes a 1/1 elemental creature with vigilance, indestructible, and haste. It's still a land partner. Well, if the theme of this deck isn't completely obvious, it is a tokens deck, but there's an actual hidden theme that we had to work with because that's what Scott wanted. Big mana. He wants to make a ton of mana. So what's the game plan like with these tokens of big mana?
Well, Joe, we're going to create a ton of mana and tokens and steamroll over players by going so wide, no one can stop us, or pumping the tokens. Also, there's a secret win condition.
Yes, there's a secret win condition that we'll mention when we get to it. He also wanted to add that in, so we're doing it for him. So first thing we got to do so that you guys can get an idea of what this deck was working with, the best cards in the deck. Absolute best. Well, Field of the Dead. This is a tokens deck, and it already had a way or two to search up for Field of the Dead. You just get tokens for free for playing the game. This costs you 0 cards.
This is the best land in the universe, and I'm so happy to be talking about it 2 tune-ups in a row. You know, if anyone else has Field of the Dead decks they want to get tuned up, I'll talk about it all day.
These are literally two of the best strategies in the row for tune-ups. A Landfall deck was the last one, and this one is now a tokens deck.
What's next, zombies?
I mean, if we get a zombies deck, yeah, we'll put a Field of the Dead in that too. Also, it had Secure the Waste and March of the Multitudes. These are X spells that make a ton of 1/1s. One, they're actually work with big mana, and they already make a ton of tokens. This is exactly what this deck wants to do.
Well, especially with Parallel Lives and Anointed Procession out, that you're doubling all your output for these crazy X spells. And if you got a bunch of creatures, we're going to use Circle of Dreams Druid as a sort of budget different card replacement for Gaia's Cradle and make a jillion mana, or just play Nyxbloom Ancient, and it's over from there.
Yeah, Nyxbloom Ancient this is a big mana deck. The Circle of Dreams Druid and the Nyxbloom Ancient really showed that when it came into us. Those are cards that you're probably not putting in your average token deck, but if you want a theme of big mana, then yeah, you go with these.
It's like there's over the top, and then there's what we're about to do.
There's what Nyxbloom Ancient does by himself.
Exactly.
He's so ridiculous.
Let's talk about the adds and cuts, the changes to the deck. The first one is Token Makers, and we're going to cut cards that don't make enough tokens, or sometimes they make too big of tokens, and we just want more small tokens. We don't really care what size they are because we're making so many of them. We got Starnheim Unleashed and Entreat the Angels. Too slow, too unreliable, not interested.
These cards are fine, and they work kind of with the deck, but I think when you make a token deck, you have to decide on one way or the other.
Yeah.
You want a ton of small tokens, or you want the big tokens that you can work with. And both of those are fine builds, and you can go either way. But I think when you go, you have to choose a way, and we chose to go the way of the smaller tokens. There's also a Rasta. We have to rely on our opponents to get our tokens. This can work really well, and it's probably really good in some metas, but we're not sure what we're working with in the meta-wise, so Rasta is probably just a safe cut.
Yeah, Martial Coup is right where this deck wants to be. You can make a bunch of mana, cast a huge, giant, Martial Coup, and then get a bunch of dudes. But we just have better board wipes to play, and we don't need 1,000 board wipes in this deck, so it just got cut. Risk the Redeemed. I feel like you kind of want him to be the commander, or else it's a little bit less reliable than what you might want. And also, we kind of have that spot filled up with all these X spells that are just going to be better.
Reese is a token payoff. If you're paying 2 and a white to make 1 token. That's below where you want to be. Plus, our commander already does that without tapping.
True.
So that's way better. So then we look at the other mode. It's 6 mana. We don't have haste enablers. It seems very unreliable that if you put a resound on a board where it's going to be good, it seems so unlikely on tap with it. Sure, it will happen sometimes, but because we're only going to get 1 chance to really use this, and it's most likely going to die, I think this is so unreliable that we just don't need it.
Well, plus you have the whole dance of you have to play it, then you untap with it, and now you don't win. You have the ability to make those tokens. So then you make the tokens, and then the next turn you can smash with them. We just have like Secure the Waste, March of the Multitudes, and even more cards than that we're adding that just skip all that, and they go end of turn. Here's 1,000 guys. You're dead.
Yeah, we also cut Justani. This works kind of with Prava to make like you gain a bunch of extra life. We have other ways to gain life in this deck, which are actually surprising amount.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we're not copying big tokens. We decided to go with a small token. If you go the big token route with a deck like this, sure, Justani's great. As when you make like a 16/16 crazy what's the Phyrexian thing that makes you lose life?
Processor?
Yeah, Phyrexian processor. Obviously, Tristani's great with stuff like that, but we're making 1/1 tokens, as many of those as we can.
Yeah, I feel like Tristani Celestine's voice is like a tokens trap. I see it in so many decks where there's like, if you don't have a heavy life gain theme, and you can't use that, or you're not populating some giant thing, just get it out of your deck. It's not going to help you that much. Just gaining life isn't really getting you anywhere by itself.
Agreed. So our ads for the token makers. I couldn't think of what we were on. Yeah. Token makers. Call the Copper Coats. This makes 1,000,000 tokens. It's so easy. I love holding this up and just this surprise army out of nowhere, depending on what your opponents are doing. You can, again, like, there's another token deck at the table. This card is insane.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's only 3 mana. For the best, like for the meat of the effect is only 3. But if you want, an extra 10 guys, you can just pay 7 mana, and we're going to have 7 mana. We are going to have so much mana. And this card actually slots perfectly into this deck. Visions of Glory, it's medium, and you have to build around it with the flashback. But 4 and a white, double our creatures, and if we have Anointed Procession out, double them again, and then flashback for white always, because Kamahl's 8 mana.
Yeah, works really well with this deck. The flashback being almost nothing is what takes this card from like very medium to like, okay, I can cast this in 1 turn easily. So if we have 5 tokens on the battlefield, all right, we have 20 tokens now. That's so doable with this deck because it really slots in well with our commander.
That's nuts. That's really cool. We also have Increasing Devotion. It's just like a powered down version of Visions, but it always has the floor of 5. So even after a board wipe, you can just redevelop all at once. We're kind of getting away from some of these like upkeep trigger, make a token every upkeep where you only get 1, but you always get 1. We're kind of to the point where we'd rather just have X right away. We'd rather just have the number, pay a little extra mana sometimes.
Yeah, these 2 cards I think are great in this deck. Sylvan Offering and Benevolent Offering, they both just give away, Sylvan Offering is perfect rate. It's X in a green to make X guys and an XX Tree Folk,
right?
Which that happens to make a big guy. Actually, I didn't even realize we can do that. We have to give X tokens away and an XX Tree Folk to somebody. That's fine. That actually works with Call the Copper Coats. We can give them a bunch of guys, then untap, and then Call the Copper Coats to get even more guys.
Thank you.
Benevolent Offering is great incidental life gain because it's 4 mana to get 3 1/1 flyers, and you get to make a friend along the way. That's great.
And it's an instant speed thing. And it's in this deck you're going to gain like 40 life. It's ludicrous, especially when you have a token double route. And we're trying to get those like every game.
Yeah, I think Benevolent Offering is just such a fantastic card. So yeah, it definitely slots in well to any deck that's going to go wide like this. Pest Infestation. This is both removal, so we can remove artifacts and enchantments, and we can get a bunch of pests. These are tokens. Again, we don't care about the size of the tokens. We know they're 1/1s. They're as small as they're going to get. Kamahl's going to win the game. That's how we're mostly going to win this game.
I mean, Kamahl and Prava, their 1 power is now 5 power. We don't need anything else, really. We have some other backup, like pumps and wins.
Like Elesh Norn.
There's Elesh Norn and Kathar's Crusade in this deck. But it's like the bulk of the victory is going to be Prava, Kamahl, attack for 50.
Yeah. Join the dance. We need to slot some early stuff in. Yeah, we have ramp in the early slots, obviously. We can do that. But sometimes you want to get on board, and Join the Dance is going to do that perfectly.
Yeah, it's the best version of like 2 mana, make 2 dudes we've ever seen. And I think it's like just over the hill of playability because it has flashback and it's not.
Yeah, I don't think
it's not just a one-off.
I don't think this card's great or broken, but it fits the theme of the deck very well, and it's doing what we want to be doing.
It's kind of in the spot of like an Awakening Zone or one of those effects.
Yeah, the next one is a card that you're going to say, well, what? That's not a token maker, but it's Pier's Whim. It's a way to get Field of Dead in this deck. This deck already had Promise. It already had our Promise. That's a way to go get it. Getting our Field of Dead on the field is great. This deck had a great mana base coming in. We slightly adjusted it. We're always going to be triggering our Field of the Dead. So Piers Whim's a way to get that.
Yeah, we are playing Magic, so we can trigger Field of the Dead with ease. And the last one, Monastery Mentor, when all was said and done, this was like the last add to the deck because we're like, all right, how many creatures are we adding to the deck? Oh, like 2?
None.
Okay, well, that means Monastery Mentor is going to trigger a ton of times, and he pumps the dudes for you.
Yeah,
pumps the monks.
We have plenty of, basically our whole deck is non-creature spells other than, what is it, 15 creatures?
15 or 20, not too many.
I think it's 15. I think we literally have about 15 creatures in this deck, so that's absolutely awesome. This triggers so easily.
Next, we got big mana stuff. So we're going to cut some of the big mana stuff. Don't worry, we're adding more. Regal Behemoth can go, and Shalai, Voice of Plenty. I'm not that interested in giving our creatures hexproof. It's nice with Kamahl, but we're trying to just slam Kamahl and get the trigger, and we have other ways of protecting him. It's just not what we're looking for exactly because we're going way bigger.
Yeah, I just don't think Shalai, Voice of Plenty. We have tons of other ways to pump, so we're not interested in that side. And the hexproof we're only interested in protecting our commander because all of our other things are useless tokens we don't care about. So that I don't think that card's very good. Regal Behemoth, we've just ended up these 3 ads just basically took the place of it. It's Ashnod's Altar, which lets us sacrifice our tokens into our X spells to basically double the number of tokens we have, or potentially just go crazy. There's also Cryptolith Rite and Song of Fragilise. Both of these make our creatures tap for mana, so they're basically just going to be rituals. And Cryptolith Rite, if it stays out, is just going to make you infinite mana.
Yeah, I don't know how you're losing with Cryptolith Rite not being answered. It just every turn, your mana basically doubles because you're going to pump it all into making more creatures that are going to tap for more mana next turn, and then you're going to make more creatures, and it's just going to be ludicrous. And Song of Fragilise does it for a small window, but it does give you the indestructible on the next go-around, which is decent to have. It's one of the only other ways to get this effect. I think it's worth it.
It gives you a free attack also. Your creatures gain indestructible and vigilance and a +1 counter. So this is an absolutely free attack. You get to send everything wherever you want.
Oh, and another thing that Scott wanted was he liked the idea of protecting his team from board wipes that he casts proactively to Plague Wind. And Song of Fragilise actually does that perfectly, where you untap, trigger it, and then you play like Vanquish the Horde and just blow everything else up, and you can attack uninterrupted.
Yeah, and along the lines of our big mana, we just mentioned some ways to make more big mana. The secret Wincon that he wanted thrown in the deck is Hurricane. And I think Ashnod's Altar was the perfect way to implement this. If you have an Ashnod's Altar and a Cryptolith Rite, you're winning. You're just going to go Cryptolith Rite, tap all your creatures to make mana, then sack them all to make mana, then cast this gigantic Hurricane. And you did this all instant speed, so it's even better.
Right, well, you got Hurricane at sorcery, but
I was thinking it was instant.
They're never going to see this coming. You're at like 60 life, they're like 40 life, and maybe they all have Ghostly Prisons out, and you're just like, I don't even care. Hurricane for 45, and they just go and die.
Yeah, Hurricane's really, really not that great of a card, but it's going to be really fun in this deck.
I like it. I like the Fireball win condition out of nowhere.
Well, it's an Earthquake win condition, BZ.
Yes. Next is Miscellaneous. It's the card draw. It's the ramp. It's the removal. It's the bread and butter cards. What do we got?
This just wasn't. Yeah, all these cards are like all over the place. We just need a place to throw them because it was like 2 switches in ramp, 2 switches in card draw. All right, so let's put it all in one place and just talk about the miss cards. Return the Wild Speaker, we cut all the go big stuff. This isn't what our deck is doing. We're going wide, so we're not interested. Esper Sentinel, we don't have any way to augment this power. Yeah, it's a generically good card, but focusing on synergy is more important.
Yeah, we don't really have a toolbox of things to find them, especially since we cut Eladamri's Call. There's so few creatures in this deck, kind of just lost the utility of it.
Yeah, there's not enough creatures that warrant a tutor for creatures. Timeless Witness, we cut any Populate that was in the deck, so Timeless Witness cool with Populate, kind of medium otherwise.
Yeah, Heroic Intervention swapped out basically for Freyalise's thing, or Freyalise took the spot of this so that we could add a different effect. I'm not a huge fan of this card.
I'm never putting Heroic Intervention in a white deck. We have Teferi's Protection and Heroic
Flawless Maneuver.
Flawless Maneuver. Yeah, there's just too much random white stuff that does a better job than Heroic Intervention. Heroic Intervention, if I'm off white, I'm interested in it because that's the only way to really get that effect. White, I'm out. Path to Exile, we can do better on removal, especially we'll tell you what we had in a second.
Yeah, Kodama's Reach, Rampant Growth, they're gone. One of them was Pier's Whim that got kind of swapped in. We just didn't need either of them. And Akroma's Will, kind of on the Heroic Intervention side, just a little bit pricey mana-wise. And we're gonna go over them with Kamahl too.
Yeah, I think the main reason we don't want Akroma's Will is unless it's combined specifically with Kamahl, our creatures are mostly tiny. And yeah, we have some ways to pump them, but the double strike get through is usually what it can be a finisher. This card's fine, and there's a lot of great decks for it. I really like it, but not in this deck.
Now, and then Divine Visitation, we had so many token payoffs. We had to start cutting them because we needed room for actual like token makers and all the cogs of this deck. So they got cut. We don't really need to turn them into 4/4s. We're just gonna make so many of them that they could be 1/1s and with no pumps. And we're going to annihilate people.
Yeah, I like Divine Visitation, but you have to cut. Basically, you can't have all these. You can't have Parallel Lives and what's the white one? Possession and Divine Visitation. This is too many do nothing enchantments. Sure, they're all strong with the deck and they work, but when you draw 2 of them and you don't draw enough tokens, you can just get in these weird situations that you don't want to be in. I think that Divine Visitation is good, has homes. Just, again, we're overloaded on payoffs.
Well, we already have cards you have to untap with anyway. Like, aside from those, like Nyx's Formation and Mirari's Waker in here, we're really trying to untap with some stuff.
Yeah, we have so many do nothing, just wait till I untap cards, which it's okay to have some of those, but if your whole deck is those cards, it's much worse.
Yeah, so we added Camaraderie, which is going to be a nice way to gain life for our Hurricane plan, and also just draw like 20, 15 cards. I think that's a reasonable floor of this.
We cut Maraschiello before, and in is now the Hour of Reckoning. So this is just one form replacement. It's basically going to be a one-sided wipe. We have literally like 13 creatures that kills in the whole entire deck, and most of them produce tokens anyway.
Yeah, why go through the trouble of destroying all creatures and then protecting yours when you can just destroy all creatures that aren't yours?
Yeah. Idol of Oblivion. This is going to be a draw every single turn because your deck is so good at producing tokens.
Different from Phyrexian Arena because it is a cantrip that then draws you a card every turn for 1 less mana and has no colors, and can sacrifice in the late game for a 10/10. Phyrexian Arena does none of those.
Yeah, I want to say if Phyrexian Arena that we are so down on, and those kind of cards that trigger on your upkeep, if they gave you something when they entered, I'm much higher on that.
Different story.
It's a much different story, but you don't get anything when it enters, and 1 untap is your card back. Now, oof.
1 untap, we're up cards.
Yeah, 1 untap, we've got 2 cards, yeah. And Oblivion doesn't cost any mana to do or life, so I like that.
It's really good.
The replacement for Path to Exile, pretty much directly, Kabira Takedown. This is both an MDFC land, which is great, and we have so many creatures that basically we're going to be able to kill anything. We already had swords. It's so tough to fit swords and Path in a non-pure white deck.
I feel like Kabira Takedown kind of killed Path for me.
Yeah, for a deck we have creatures, but I think, like I said, I think it's based on colors mostly. If you leave mono white, I think Path almost never makes it for me.
Yeah, and we got trillions of little tiny dudes entering the battlefield, so Mentor, the Meek, and Aura Shards, they're going to overperform. We're drawing cards nonstop, over the top. We have so much mana. Sometimes our creatures that were out before are going to tap for the mana to draw cards off the creatures we just played, and it's going to get out of hand. And Aura Shards is almost like an enchantment that just says your opponents can't play artifacts or enchantments. We'll never not have things enter.
Last adds and cuts, the lands. This was super simple. The lands were very good in this deck. We just cut 4 forests and 2 plains. We obviously added some MDFCs, and we also added 2 snow-covered forests and 2 snow-covered plains. This is purely for Field of Dead. It's just a free roll.
And at the request of Scott, we have a little bit of numbers for you. He wanted a little breakdown of what the categories in the deck had. So ramp, we ended up with 16 ways to ramp various effects that are like sorceries. Some of them are enchantments. Some of them are creatures. Token makers, 27, including Prava. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, we're on the high end of ramp. That 16 is
That's pretty high.
Yeah, that's high for ramp. Token makers, 27 is great. I feel like that's right where we want to be. 1/4 of our deck. We want to make sure we have token makers in every opening hand and in basically not every opening hand, just every game. We need to see these as much as possible for the deck to function.
Yeah, the card draw, it's only 9, but all of them have the potential to draw like a million cards. Like we're talking Toski and Orin Frostfang, which just care about how many creatures hit, which have pseudo haste that turn. We got like Skull Clamp. It's going to draw 2, 4, 6, 8 cards every time. I mean, and we got Camaraderie and Shamanic Revelation. Those types of effects in Mentor where they just have no cap.
Another thing technically not a card draw spell is Enlightened Tutor, but it gets Skull Clamp. It's basically the 10th card draw spell. Yeah. If you need card draw, that will get card draw. So basically we'd say we have access to about 10 card draw spells.
Yeah, and the lands, 34/38. 34 is lands, and the 38 means we have 4 MDFCs. The 2 mythic ones that are already there. Delegate Recovery, also already there, and we added Takedown.
There's 6 big mana enablers. You got to be careful, though. You don't want to have too many of these. I think 6 is probably a pretty good number. You just have to play them, and once you untap with them, they're insane. We have to rely on that. But if you ever play, there's a potential to go Mirari's like, hey, I doubled some mana playing the Explanation. Oh, my next turn, I have this X spell. And then they untap and go, Heliod's Intervention. That kind of stuff stinks, but just only 6 of them is a great number.
We don't want to get blown out nonstop.
Yeah.
Now to some more numbers. The budget was nothing. We had the sky was the limit, but we only spent $61. Mana base, we didn't really have to touch. And I think we pretty much added all the optimal cards that we were looking for, and just didn't. It just happened to not be expensive.
Yeah, I think that this deck came in very tuned and very much like something we would build.
Yeah.
There's a couple like we wanted to get away from. Like I said, I think you have to choose one. I think you make the big tokens or you go wide. Both of them can be strong in their own senses, but I think that doing both is kind of a mistake. You can mix and match. You can. But personally, I would go one way or another.
Yeah, because if I'm trying to make huge ones, I maybe just want divine, and I don't want to double my tokens because your return is lower when you're like doubling 4/4s. They're making less of them. But regardless, the original average mana value of the deck was 3.46, and we lowered it a ton to 3.44. Damn. We're good.
That's for budget, and there's no budget, so we can't be good if there's no budget.
We're so good.
23 total changes. Nothing too crazy, but like I said, the deck was kind of something we would build already. We just took it to exactly
the next level.
Literally, exactly what we would build.
Yeah, that is basically exactly what we would build.
That is our video. Special shout outs to all of our patrons. Scrolling now correctly. There's the word lie not over my lips this time because I'm not lying.
You're not lying. They're in the order.
They're scrolling in the order that people became patrons. Actually doing that was very interesting. Dear Dustin is what he goes by now on Patreon.
Okay.
Has been our patron the longest. It's been like 2.5 years. That's insane.
That's crazy.
Thank you.
Seriously, we appreciate all of you equally and without making you uncomfortable. Guess why would we do that?
Nope, I appreciate Dustin more.
Whoa.
No.
Check out that TCG player link in the description if you want to be appreciated more by us. Buy the cards. We'll sense it in our souls. And then once you check out, that's just where it all happens because we're going to get a kickback from TCG Player, our good friends, and you spend no extra money.
Yes, exactly. Could not agree more. Also, we have a Discord. Come into the Discord. The link is in the description. You join it, and you can DM us. You can add us in the chat. We always respond to that stuff. Or just chat with other people about Magic the Gathering.
Yes. Oh, and for the tidbit, I definitely have something. It's my turn.
BZ showed me a Reddit post where people were discussing if red was the worst color in Magic. And it came up in the post. Which one is the worst channel? Commander's Quarters or Nitpicking Nerds? Which I thought was hilarious. One, if you don't like our channel, that's fine. We intentionally are very opinion driven in base. We try to give our disclaimers in the beginning, like explaining exactly what we're talking about. People he's like, they have the worst takes. And then the one guy's like, you have the worst takes. In fact, they said Phyrexian is bad, but Stinging Study and Ad Nauseam are good. It's like, yeah, we think that. All of our opinions obviously are caveated with power level or whatever. And if you don't enjoy our videos, that's perfectly fine. Being a jerk on the internet though, and going into Reddit and going, I think that channel's ass. All right. I mean, you could say that, and we accept that you have that opinion, but that's just kind of mean.
Well, you also have to look at like the scope of the channel because I mean, like Commander's Quarter is very budget focused, and like on this channel, like you're just focused about like high synergy, trying to like get close to like high power without crossing into high power, like playing with Power MTG or like some of the CDH channels.
Another comment was literally on that same thread that was just talking about us was. They said that Diabolic Tutor is bad regardless of budget. No, we didn't. We said that Diabolic Tutor is bad unless you're on a really strict budget. I don't understand. It's like people misquote us all the time. And then my favorite thing, there's a couple comments that basically were like defending us. One was like, I went and watched their channel, and you guys were the way you said it would basically make you think that they just make fun of the fundamentals of Magic and disagree with everything. But they caveated everything, and they said exactly what they mean. You would have thought that they were terrible. And another guy was like, they talk about specific metas and their meta, and they always caveat that it's their opinion.
Well, people will always like corner case trying to find something to complain about, but like always,
poopy babies.
Yeah, we've got to get out of here. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.
What? I say that.
Oh.